I'm Ryan. I'm here with my brother Dango, and this is Rolls in the Family. And today we are doing the final installment in the 2024 editions.
So you're saying
this
ever?
This is the final video.
I wasn't
Rolls in
ready
the
for
Family.
that, Ryan.
I didn't tell Dango, but
I wasn't ready
just,
for that.
Just the final installment
Okay.
of our
Woo.
monthly plays series of 2024. It'll continue, don't worry, in 2025. But closing out the year, talking about our top three plays of the month, we got some board gaming in December. The holidays, they bring family together from time to time. We did find ourselves in some common games this month.
That's right.
And yeah, we're as always going to, I feel rusty for some reason with this intro, but we will have links in the description below for you to check out these great games if you would like to check them out for yourself. And we also like to hear what you've been playing. So leave a comment. Tell us what you've been playing. If you had a really good play, something over the holidays that
maybe
stood
got a
out.
little Christmas gift.
Maybe something
snuck it
new
in before the end of the year.
My birthday is in December and Christmas is in December, so it's just like
big month.
Influx of game and all the Kickstarters that are delivering 7 months later
It's
than
just
they said.
beautiful
Those
timing.
Are
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's just
timing.
everything's aligning.
Very nice.
But yeah, let's jump into it, Daniel. I'm very curious to see what's on your list. So let's start with your number 3.
Yes. This was tricky because we were together over the New Year's, so I had to remember what we played in December and what we played in January. So there will be some games that get pushed off to next month. But
next month.
Ryan, I'd be happy to hear all of my games were played with you. So, but I also think like all of my board games of that were in contention were played with you. So
there you go.
My number 3 is probably the most shocking one. Well, I don't know, like shocking to myself in that going into the game, I don't know. I didn't looked at the cover, didn't think much of it, hadn't really heard a thing about it before. Honestly, didn't even know you owned it. And yet you whipped this bad boy out, and oh my, did it tickle my heart. This is going to go to the Guild of Merchant Explorers.
Oh, really? There you go. I mean, I did just get it for my birthday.
Oh, okay.
So it's not like it's been sitting in my collection.
I have no idea. So I'm like, I've never heard of this before. Yeah. So you pulled this one out and kind of has, some interesting artwork, kind of I don't know.
Very beige.
Yeah, very, very beige. And it's, one where you kind of, you got kind of this big map, and everyone on their turn is you flip a resource, and then everyone is playing, kind of that thing,
like that terrain type
on their map, and you're kind of going out. But the really interesting thing in the game is that after all the cards get flipped, you have to you clear all the cubes, and so some certain things leave. Like you're able to, I don't know if it's like cities or whatnot. There's certain things
you get
you're
the
able
little
to leave on the
villages.
map.
If you finish a section, you can put a village out.
Right. And it was several things I really loved about it. One, that whole just kind of flow of expanding out, getting permanent things, knowing that all your cubes are going to go away. So it's kind of like, how, where am I going to want to get to this round? Do I think I can get over here? And what the cards are. Like you know exactly so you're kind of thinking to yourself, okay, this is what the cards are. But I love that you don't know the order they're going to come out. Like it's such a simple mechanic, but it's this kind of, it's not like push your luck, but a little bit is.
It can be a little bit because you can plan because I know I'm going to get 1 mountain. I know I'm going to get 2 of any terrain.
Right.
And it's like, well, if it comes out in this sequence, I could really do this great thing. But how much is it going to hurt me if I start to commit here and it doesn't, come out in that order?
Yeah. It's a game of you really are trying to keep your options open and being flexible so that, hopefully you're not destroyed by a certain way of it coming out. Although there were definitely some times in the game later where I was like, oh my gosh, this is horrible how this is coming out. So that whole mechanic, is interesting, but then you're, every round that you get a special, kind of,
there's a card shuffled into the deck for the era, and when that comes up, everybody gets the choice of 2 like superpower abilities. Like compared
And
to
they're
the other
crazy
cards,
good.
Yeah, it's like, oh, some of the other normal ones are like explore 1 mountain or explore 2 desert spaces, and then you'll get one that's like explore 3 mountains and 2 deserts all in one thing, or like there was one that's like a straight line as far as you can go on land.
Yeah,
like you can just like shoot off.
It's wild, and so those feel extremely powerful. And although on the flip side of it, again, you don't know when those are going to come. So those get shuffled back in. You don't know when they're going to come out. And I had several times where it's like, dang it came out right now. Like I wasn't ready for it. I didn't get to the spot that I, needed to go to really utilize it. So I don't know. It was just a really fun game of kind of, seeing how you can get out and explore and really keep yourself in a solid position. It's a very, very kind of just, I don't know, tactical and kind of figuring out how to best position yourself. That was a good old time, Ryan. And it was one that I really enjoyed and definitely have my eye on now. So yeah, number 3 of the month.
Nice. I've enjoyed that one. I really love the design decision of those, superpowers that you get, but then you slot that. Like in the first round, you slot that as your Era 1 ability, and then the Era 1 card stays in the deck for Eras 2 through 4. So yours. And so as the game goes on, you're getting more and more differentiated.
Yeah.
But it's adding to what you know is going to happen. Like when you're in that 4th era, your 1 through 3 are all going to hit at some point. And actually, if you're in the last era, there's even the card that you can pick any of them to do again.
Yeah.
And so that just so adds to how you can kind of plan out and do some really big moves.
It honestly reminded me of, I used to own Kingdom Builder, and that was one where, again, it was a game of and some people, don't like it because they think it's just, you're just getting, but it's a game of keeping yourself flexible. Like that's the key is
like when the random card is drawn, I've put myself in a situation where I can still use it effectively. I'm not just at the mercy of it.
And I think I really like that just mechanic. I think it's really really fun one. So for me, this was took some, I was fine with Kingdom Builder, but I did like that part of it. And it feels like this took that and just implemented it in a way that I really enjoyed.
It makes it almost like more of like a flip and write game. Like it feels closer to the type of game where you're like drawing on your own thing, but because it's got the whole take things off, you put all the cubes on and then you have to take it off, which makes it a little fiddly. It's probably the biggest kind of complaint with this game. Like if you accidentally like bump the table or like there's definitely some fiddliness to this. But I don't know. There's also depending on your personality, there's some satisfaction in fiddliness, putting all the little cubes out, moving them around, all the little pieces.
That's true. So, all our fiddly fans out there.
Yes, all the fiddly fans. I guess I'm one of them. I want to get the little tweezers out. But nice. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I've enjoyed that one.
Yeah.
My plays of it so far as well. My number 3 is a highly thematic game. This is definitely in a different category, I would say, than Guild of Merchant Explorers. This is one that I have had on my like top of my to get list for a while now. But it was going through a new like Kickstarter reprint. I actually didn't back it, but was just waiting for the retail version to be available again. And finally, I got my hands on a copy of Thunder Road Vendetta, which has gone over about as well as I could have hoped. I think I've already played it 9 times in the last,
that was
3
the game
weeks
that you kept whipping out.
Yeah, well, it really had some success in our family, and part of the reason is it appeals to a broad range of ages. So we played a game with my 4-year-old son and our nephew who's 7. And it went over great. I had already played it a few times with my son, and he really enjoys that game.
Yeah.
And it is one of those things that it's just such a fun thematic. And I honestly don't think I had very many games like this in my collection. That it's like, this is just going to be one of those wow people with how just crazy and fun focused it is. Like
Right.
you're driving these cars and shooting at each other and just crazy things are happening. And in the few games I've played so far, so I don't know that I even have like a specific session that I'm thinking of for this
we had
play,
too many plays.
because I've played, several, but there's so many just like moments that I'm just like, man, that's so fun that can happen in this game. I think of when we actually played a game that our older brother was in, and he, there's all these hazards on the map that like you can go around them and, take longer or less efficient routes, or you can go over them and they might just be road or might be something good, but they could be bad. They could be anything. And I remember he hit one where it turned out to be a ramp, and it turned out that he ramped and like landed on a mountain and exploded. And it's like he didn't know he was going to be jumping. And it's just a funny moment. I know we had, I think it was the game we were together with our nephew and my son that my son was about to win, but had to go over one more hazard, like towards the end. And it was the blast off one, which like blasts you a random number of spaces in a random direction. And he happened to roll to blast him over the finish line and won. And this is like an epic finish. Where I had a 2-player game with my son where I was about to win, but my car was on fire. And when your car's on fire, you every turn you move that car, have to roll the fire die, and you might go faster. It might just be smoke, but there's one die result that your car will explode. And of course, right as I'm about to cross the finish line, my car explodes. And it's just, you got to go into it with the right expectations. There are going to be some people that don't like this game at all. And there's going to be people that maybe because they didn't go in with the right expectations don't enjoy it. I mean, you could get really unlucky and have your cars get...
Oh, yeah.
And actually, every game, if you're playing with more than 2 people, it's guaranteed somebody's going to get completely eliminated because that's what triggers the end of the race coming in. And so it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're talking a game that in my session so far has landed between 30 to 60 minutes, which that's really a great place to be sitting for this. And so, I have been really, it's been exactly what I wanted it to be, and why I had my eye on it. Honestly, I hadn't even been thinking about the fact that it would be so accessible even for my 4-year-old who is advanced for a 4-year-old and has played a lot of, a lot of games that are kind of maybe out of his age range. But there's not a lot in it that, like, there isn't really reading, which is a big reason why a lot of games aren't going to be ready for him yet.
Right.
The main mechanisms are assigning a die to a car and moving the car that many spaces. He's played a lot of games with counting spaces. And so it took a few plays for it to settle in, but he could totally play it now and like understands what's going on.
Can't wait for Ryan's next top games for 4-year-olds. Number 1.
Or doing Toby's top games at some point here. It'll probably be on there.
It's true.
So it's been a lot of fun. I did get it I got the Chop Shop expansion that has like some of the character ability stuff, and then the what is it, Carnage at Devil's Run. That one feels almost mandatory because that's what adds a bunch of new track that adds the jumps, it adds fire, it adds a lot of new hazard stuff that amps up just like kind of the replay value of what can happen. So really enjoying this one so far, and glad that I kind of have, like I said, anytime you can find a game that like feels like it slots into a category of its own in your collection, that feels like a big win, and Thunder Road's been that for me.
Yeah, wow, 9 times you say.
I think so, yeah. I mean, probably 5 of those are 2-player with my son because, tell you, when you live together and your son asks you to play a game every day, you
gotta do it.
Gotta do it.
Well, Ryan, those were 9 plays of Thunder Road Vendetta, and they were equally as impactful on me as well because my number 2 is also going to be Thunder Road Vendetta. Ryan, I was extremely kind of skeptical of this game going into it because this is what I had heard about it was like it's crazy, wild, all about like funny moments, and sometimes I get skeptical of games like that where like the whole purpose of the game is, well, not the whole purpose of the game, but just like a big part of it is funny moments, because it's almost like, is it, one, can it actually deliver on that? You know, like, is it really, or is it going to feel like either forced or just, oh, that's actually not that funny?
And
or
can it game after game, or is it, there's, because a lot of games they'll have like this upfront novelty factor, and that was something I did worry about with this. Is like, yeah, it's really funny the first time this crazy thing happens and you blow up. Is it going to continue?
Yeah.
So far in my plays, I've found that it feels like it's going to continue to be fun, especially with new groups and stuff.
Totally. And I think along with that, like I had a concern of, oh, is it just going to be funny for the person who good things happen to, but like if bad things happen to you, you're just going to be like, I hate this. All of that was, all those concerns were removed. Oh my goodness, this game is so much fun. Like you were saying, it is incredibly thematic. I mean, you can just imagine these things happening, you know, and the crazy circumstances of things. And I guess that's what amazed me was there's so many mechanisms in the game that allow for crazy things to happen.
Yeah.
And we love that. We love when a game delivers a moment where you're just like, oh my gosh, look at this, you know, or like, wow, can you believe? And the way the you know, hitting each other, you know,
the slam mechanic is really good.
It's so good because if you have a pack, I mean, you could have multiple chain reactions and it causes something that you just couldn't have even imagined, you know, that happening or the like I just think that's so well done. You have the hazards, which obviously add just, you know, funny things of like so many things. It feels like the people who made this game just so were dialed in on how to just make a fun game, like in every part of it. You know, like I think about, okay, going in, you know, you get on fire, your car's in flames. Like that could have just been like a purely like negative thing. Like it's just gonna, you know, hurt you every turn. But instead, it is bad, but it also can potentially launch you, like you can go super
I mean, you
fast.
could win if you can avoid blowing up, you could win the game because of that extra boosting you've been getting.
And so it's just like, totally. And so it's just like this simple, it's a design decision, but it's one that just makes the game so much more fun and creates so many more interesting moments. And so I think that's what just impressed me the most is, it's a very just like you're just doing this straight race, and yet in this short track, so many memorable things were able to happen, and where you walk away from a game and you just have these moments, and that's just incredibly fun. So yeah, this one really left a positive impression on me. I'm like, I've already got heat pedal to the metal. You know, is this just another racing game? I know they're not even in the same. They're not even. I mean, this is. Gosh, this one honestly almost gave me more of what a little bit we get. I know when we play like a Mechs versus Minions of like the. We talk about just these like funny moments and the way the damage can cause just like crazy things to happen. Like that almost feels a little bit more what this, but I would say this one even takes it just to another level of that. So along with that, you know, like you mentioned, you can die quickly in this game. You know, you create like, you know, and normally that would be a bad, like I would say that's a big red flag. It
helps a lot that you have 3 cars, right?
You have 3 cars and it's a quick game. Like, you know, it's one if you get knocked out in a hour and a half game, like that's brutal. But that 30 to 60 minutes, it just softens it where you're able to laugh about it more. Definitely probably takes the right, like you definitely could have someone who doesn't laugh about it. You have to go into this game, everyone with kind of just that same mindset. But man, if you have the right group, this is so much fun. So
it is.
It was a good old time. So that is my number 2. Thunder Road.
Nice. Yeah, I guess one closing thought there. We talk, or I don't know if we talk a lot about this, but I feel like often in the board gaming world, we talk about like meaningful decisions being like something that you generally are looking for in a good design. But I think I've found more and more that like within that, there's meaningful decisions that like are greatly impacting your chances of winning the game. But there can be a game where like the randomness is so much that like this decision isn't necessarily going to, you know, that affect whether I win or lose, but it can still be interesting within itself. It can be interesting on the like how much am I pushing my luck versus not pushing my luck. So it's just more of a like dialing in how aggressive you want to be. But there's also just times with like probabilities. It's like
Yeah.
I'm doing something clever that is slightly increasing my probabilities. You know, in the end, there's a lot of random factors that are going to decide what actually happens. But that's so interesting. Like, as somebody who is looking for strategic things to latch onto, I still find it in this game of how to assign my dice and stuff. So I think that's definitely it kind of nailed that piece.
Well, and I saw it in the game we played together. I had a car that was nearly in last place, and I saw this path where if I took this risk and went off this jump, I went and got on fire to went off this jump, like, and I ended up pulling out this crazy comeback win. And yeah, it was just a game that with all of those variables, it allows for crazy moments, crazy comebacks, and experiences that are awesome. So
nice.
What's your number 2?
Well, there you go. That was a good 10 minutes of waxing on Thunder Road.
It deserved it. It deserved it.
There you go. It
really did. That was solid.
My number 2 is kind of staying on the theme here of pretty new releases. We're not always talking about really new releases, but
Ryan.
oftentimes
we're just cult of the new.
Yeah, cult of the new. Birthday and Christmas, there's definitely some things that were on the list that were a little newer. This is one that I had been wanting to get. I had played a few times already, but was still waiting for that like representative experience of this game to really know what I thought about it. Because it is a very, very unique game. It's one that I know you've now had the opportunity to have a representative experience in January, but I also played it in December.
I was going to say, Ryan, are you cheating here?
Yeah, I got to tell Ding I'm not breaking the rules. This is Arcs. I forget the full name of it. We'll just call it Arcs.
That's a good thing to call it.
We played a 3-player game, and it was with a group that I had previously played a 3-player game. The first time we played, it was both their first times playing. I kind of dominated. That game has a big learning curve to just how to operate in it effectively. And obviously, since I hadn't played it much, I couldn't give as much of that in my rules teach of like how to kind of, because I hadn't really figured it out yet. But playing it again with the same group and having a tight 3-player game that was tight all the way up until the end really started to see how this game can shine. Such a unique combination of things going on here. I mean, first off, this is an aggressive game. This is like every round, the players themselves are determining through card play what is going to score.
Yeah.
But like the sooner you declare, you can claim one of the higher point values to make sure that higher point value is going to what you want it to be. But you're also then giving more time for everybody to react to the fact that they now know that this is scoring. And so it's a very like zero sum. Like, these are the things that are scoring. You're getting no other points in any other way. And each of these things are first place gets the first value, second place gets the second value. So it is so that, I guess, paired with the other design decision that there are only 5 of each resource in the game. Like 5 tokens, regardless of the number of the players you're playing with. And a lot of those resources are central to these ambitions that are being scored.
Many times I forgot that rule.
Yeah, so you're like, I'm going to get so many this turn. There are none in the market. I guess I can't.
My gosh, man.
But what this is setting up is it is inevitable in this game that the most strategic plays are going to be, how can I steal? Because stealing a resource is not just getting it, but it's swinging, the majorities. And so... And that's where a lot of the aggressiveness in the game is coming from, is people coming in and, raiding people's cities and going and taking stuff. Though it's interesting, having now played it, you start to see like, okay, I can see how I could protect myself better. Like suddenly it's like, oh, maybe just building another city to get more cities off, I shouldn't do so easily, because it's like, if I'm not ready to protect that city,
protect it,
that city is just asking to get raided. And I'm gonna leave our game. I'm not gonna get into our game from January yet. Don't. We'll leave that for the future. But yeah, it is such interesting navigating your way towards and as you get closer and closer to the end of the round, because like, a lot of times these ambitions are very close. Like, you're not working with big numbers here. No. It's like, okay, I've got 2 of this thing, they have 3, and this other person has 3. Like the final actions in the round could swing it, and it's fascinating. I'm finding myself. It's one of those things where I usually my like fascination with the design is a component of how much I like a game, but it's not like the main piece. Like I need to really enjoy playing the game. But this is one that has that really strong. Like I'm just fascinated being in this system and figuring out how to work in it and work with my cards and do this. I'm not usually drawn to games quite this like full of direct conflict.
Yeah.
But it's done in such a clever way, and it's so known. Like at least my expectations have been like set right. I'm like, I know this is the type of game where everybody's really jockeying for position, and like I might, do something and have things taken away from me, and it, doesn't necessarily feel good in that moment. I do like that even when something horrible happens to you, you usually feel like you're not out of it. It's like there's a way to get back into it. And because of how the scoring works, it's possible, I mean, especially when you get into like a 4-player game, that there's someone who scores 0 in a round or like only gets, and so just because somebody's ahead, you could really make up a lot of ground. And we've seen that happen in some of our games.
Right.
So fascinating game. We were playing in this particular game with the leaders and lore. The leaders are interesting because they give you a power, like an ability, but they also have a downside, which is a brilliant little way to do variable player powers. And then you pair that with a lore card, which is like another ability. So now you're getting all these different combinations. So in this particular game, I was the warrior, which whenever I would pivot or copy into a battle, so when you don't lead the trick, you can pivot or copy, which means you're like kind of playing out a suit within the trick taking. And if I did that into a battle, I could always do a free move before I did the battle action, which is a really powerful ability because a lot of times that's, you're one away from where you'd really want to battle. And otherwise you'd have to figure out how to get a card that can get you the movement first. And now you've shown what you're doing and somebody else. So it makes you a lot more dangerous to be able to like quickly do these like sneak attacks. And then that was paired with the, I think you had this one the time you played, the signal breaker that you can ignore one of the intercept symbols when you roll, which kind of just protects you when you're going into battles against other fleets. So really like the variety there. The big elephant in the room is that there's this giant, super weird campaign expansion that I have, but haven't played yet, that takes this whole system and just runs in a completely new direction with it over a 3-game campaign. So I'm excited to try that this year because that's the other, like, who knows what I'm going to think of that. But so far, my feelings of the Arcs base game is I have really enjoyed my plays about it. It's not always what I'm going to want to... I'm going to have to be in the right headspace for that experience. But I have really enjoyed it, and it certainly is different from anything else I have.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with the be in the right headspace. That game, in some ways, is not a game I should like because it is... I'm typically not a big conflict, head-to-head, like... And oh my gosh, is this game aggressive?
Yeah, this might be in like top 3 games that would have caused Daniel to explode as a child.
Oh my gosh.
Can you imagine if we had played this game?
Young Daniel would have thrown hands. Like, young Daniel would have been lost himself.
We would have gotten board games taken away from our parents.
Don't bring up Memoir 44 again. Yeah. Oh gosh.
So sad.
Yeah. It is so aggressive and it is so tense. Oh my gosh. Like... Every turn, because I mean the card play is just so interesting, but so hard. Like
everything in the game is
hard. It's like, how do I pull this off? I need to lead that in order to. But how do I get the trick? Oh, should I? But then the seizing mechanic, where you can discard, but then you're out a whole round, and
it's the last round. You get to watch everybody pass you and things that you thought you were going to.
This is such a tense, aggressive, hard game. Maybe a lot of things I wouldn't like, but man, is it a brilliant design. And I think all of that, the fact that I'm not going to get into our play because that's January, but
stay tuned.
But the fact that I was able to enjoy that game, I think speaks a lot to how great of a design it is. So, very nice, Ryan. You've gotten multiple games of Arcs in already. That's pretty.
I have. Yeah, we might be talking about it again next month. We'll see.
Very nice. Okay, Ryan. We're to the number one. Is that right?
Number one. Yeah.
Ryan, if you would have asked us if this was our number one, if this was Daniel's number one game, about 60%, how Daniel was doing 60% into this game. I don't think this would have been. This would have been.
This really speaks to the game that had overcome Daniel almost.
This game.
dying.
This game overcame a lot, man. Ryan and I were playing together, and Daniel was inflicted with a deathly illness, and I
didn't know what was happening over there. It's a cooperative game, so we were. I'm like, my teammate is dying.
I'm like dying before Ryan's eyes. My number one game was actually was Ryan got it for his birthday this year, right?
Yeah, you and the siblings got this for me.
And this goes to Slay the Spire.
The board game.
Yes. No, I didn't just watch you play the video game solo.
Yeah.
Right. Slay the Spire, the board game. I was on the opposite side of the Guild of Merchant Explorers. I was very excited to try this one. This was by far the one I was just most interested in. I've enjoyed the video game, not as much as you have, but I have enjoyed it. And was really interested to see the board game implementation of it, especially because I was honestly really skeptical of it. I was like, why would you make a board game of this? Like, are you just asking yourself to do all the tedious work that the video game does?
The whole advantage of the video game is they're able to take the tabletop deck building and do it in such a streamlined digital way.
So it was kind of an excitement, a little bit of curiosity of like, man, how are they going to implement this? But then you're hearing, a lot of people are saying this is really great. And so we got this to the table, and I mean, it was within the first few rounds where I just am like, oh my goodness, this is unbelievable. This is like one of the best deck building experiences I've ever had. And part of it is I love the video game Slay the Spire. Cooperative. Oh my goodness. That is just a unbelievable addition to a magnificent game already.
To get to share that type of experience with someone and solving some of the puzzles together, and it really is a huge selling point.
I mean, you each take your own enemies, but you can also like help each other some. I can attack yours, and even if you have the right cards, you can like even block for me and stuff. Like, so there's some real
I did block for you. Daniel would have been long gone. If it wasn't
I don't think I ever blocked for you. I don't think I did. I was all about the poison, man. I just was I was no defense, no attack, all poison. That's all I was doing. But we so the funny thing about this play is it was actually over the course of 2 days, because we didn't finish the first part because Daniel
finished Act 2.
I finished Act 2.
Like, Daniel, you should probably go home.
So I went home, hurled a little bit, and then I was good to go. And we finished Act 3, and we won, Ryan. We were a little doubtful the way it was going in Act 2.
We started kind of steamrolling a little bit.
We did.
Act 3.
So yeah, it wasn't even the finish. Honestly, wasn't even like that exciting. Like it's funny, the play itself I think was probably a good play of Slay. This probably wasn't like amazing.
It made us go, man, I wish we were playing on a higher difficulty.
It did.
It's like we felt like we got the kind of build that like we could have done a little bit more challenge.
But this game, oh my goodness, it is like it immediately jumped to like a borderline must own for me. I mean, because I love deck builders. We have a lot of experience with deck builders. We love Dominion. A game I currently still own. We'll see if I continue to own it, but Aeon's End, like that's one that I've really, really enjoyed. This surpasses them all. I mean, the game just feeds you rewards over and over and over.
The cycle is so tight and rewarding of these little battles where each time you come in with your freshly shuffled deck. So you're so often like, there's a lot of deck building games that you're like, it's not broken up that way. So like you just keep cycling through your deck. And sometimes that means as your deck gets bigger that you only see certain cards every once in a while, or like, oh, this new card I bought, I only see a few times before the game is over. So different here because every battle you shuffle and you go new, and it's, how am I building my deck to kind of perform over multiple hands depending on the order that my cards come out, and every single battle you're getting rewards after and getting an option for cards. And I feel like more than other deck builders I've played, like board gaming deck builders, it feels like the combos and like strategic builds is just amped up. Like,
yes,
it isn't just like, oh, this card kind of goes well with this. Like you really start to like feel how you're building differently this game and how these things are going to work together, and it's super satisfying.
It is. And man, it's the build and as the game kind of progresses and progresses, it's just incredible. And I mean the replayability is off the charts. I mean, there's so many, like, you think about, I'm just thinking about between like card upgrades and getting what are the permanent relics and all of, I mean, just there's so much that would make every run feel so different. And that's the beauty of the video game, right? That's why the video game is so popular. And yet I am just amazed, really, like, shout out to the designers, because they nailed it. They nailed the board game implementation of it. It is so good. Like, you can just see where it's like, because they simplified. There were a lot of things that they needed to kind of simplify, because otherwise it was just going to be, a nightmare if you just took you just copy and pasted. So they simplified a lot, but did it in the right ways, where even though a card like is maybe simplified, it has the same feel of the card in the video game, and so it just keeps the spirit of the game.
And it's shockingly not as complex as you would think.
Yeah.
Like if I compare it, because it's battling in a similar category as like Mage Knight, which is like this big deck building thing. Oh my gosh, is it easier for me to remember the rules?
This would be so much easier to pull out and teach to
like
someone.
I taught you and we never looked at the rule book again, pretty much. Yeah. Like, I mean, it's like very simple. Most of the like complexity is coming through the cards, but the cards are very clear.
They are.
So it is like, man, it's nice to play a big epic feeling game when you're doing a full 3-act that has all this, and it's like, man, there is not much rules overhead here. I feel confident that like if I didn't play it for a while and pulled it out again, I'd be up and running with hardly any looking at the rules. Now, granted, we've played the video game, so there's a lot of concepts that are already in place. But even so, like it is a fairly simple system that's so been perfected through their work on the video game that bringing it back, I mean, I shouldn't have doubted the design. I mean, they're clearly such good design. And honestly, some of the best, I mean, Slay the Spire, the video game, is some of the best implementation of deck building anywhere. So it's like, okay, well, obviously they learned a lot and like know what they're doing.
Yeah.
I suppose it's about time that I should say that Slay the Spire is also my number one.
But was it our play
month? Well, definitely not. I had to wait like 2 days to finish yours, and Daniel's like, looking like he's
there was a moment where I'm just sitting there. I'm like a fever. I'm like
trying to cooperatively like be like, how should we do this? And I look over it, and Daniel just looks like he like forgot how to read or something.
I'm just okay. When you're like out of it, there is a lot, like the game's simple, but there also is like a kind of a lot to think about of like how is, so come on, Ryan, come on.
Yeah, I'll give you a little slack. But definitely my favorite play goes to with my other friend of mine that we knocked out a 3-act game in, 2.5 hours. No, I got to play this multiple times. I also played it solo. I have actually at this point played with all 4 characters, which is again one of the huge selling points of Slay the Spire. Like compared to other like board game deck building games or games with like variable player powers. Here, the variable player power is not only this asymmetrical, like this player works differently, your entire pool of cards is unique to that character.
Unbelievable.
Like the entire deck building you're going to do. And so it's so catered. And that's probably why we say like, oh, we see like these builds come to, like, you feel like you can really combo together builds that go together. Well, it's because it's literally that character has been designed that way. But there's so much room within a character to play that character differently. Like, it's not like, oh, you just end up on the same path every time. And yeah, I mean, it is just so ridiculously fun. It's like impossible for me to, because I've played the video game. And, you know, after I played it the first time, I was like, it's like they really translated the feeling of the video game to a board game, which means it's incredible because the video game is incredible. And I was trying to think, like, suppose there hadn't been a video game and I had just gotten this game cold, like just a new game. And I'm like, I would probably be saying this is one of the best co-op, like big co-op experiences I've ever had. With and just the deck building might be the most satisfying deck building of any deck builder, because I wouldn't downplay how much it helps that Slay the Spire, and this is true of the video game as well. You have the deck building, but then you have this layer of relics that are like, you know, ongoing things that can combo, and that's so you're not just relying on what cards you draw, it's that combined with these other abilities that you have in play. And it is really brilliant how they implemented that in the board game, where every round there's a die that's rolled, and that so result is going to determine what relics trigger, what certain enemies are behaving. And so it actually, and this was one of my concerns with Slay the Spire, the board game, was like, am I going to feel like I just want to play the video game instead of playing it? And you know, maybe for solo, like, would I ever play it solo? Well, obviously the co-op, huge, like, knock out of the park selling point. You can't do that with the video game. You can here. But it was interesting playing it solo, because I was like, I could even see myself pulling this out solo instead of playing the video game. Not always, but there's differences to the experience here. You know, there's one's just the tangible, get away from a screen, holding those cards in your hand.
Those sleeves.
And just, there is something, you know, there's something about the experience that probably a lot of our board gaming people can relate to, that being just a fun, tangible thing. But then there's some things that are different, like the way the relics work. There's now this element of like, oh, I can get relics that like double down on the same die result. So I'm either getting like nothing or everything. Or it's like more of a, do I hedge my bets so that almost no matter what the die rolls, I'm getting something. That's kind of something that doesn't exist in the video game.
Right.
Also, this is a huge one, I think. There are times in the video game where you make a mistake and you can't undo it in the video game. You know, for example, you forgot that, the character, the enemy has intangible and he can like only get hurt one. And I, without realizing that, like quickly threw down a series of 4 cards that were going to do a big attack. And then I'm like, well, I just lost my whole run because of that error. Well, that's not going to happen, you know, in the board game, because you're having to administer all those things. And like, even if you really did, you would realize it and be like, oh no, I need to do that differently. So you can avoid those like game ruining moments of like, I just like misplayed that and now my run is over. The math is also so simplified, which it needed to be. But there is something to be said. There's times where you're playing the video game where you're like, okay, if I can kill him with this, then I don't need to play any defense. Like, I could just, but if I'm short, that will kill me if I try that. And I can't play anything until I know. So it's like, okay, if I play this first one that gives him vulnerable and he's got curl up, so he's going to get defense back once I hit him the first time. But now my next attack's going to do double because of vulnerable.
I just don't even do the math.
You know, and you get to the point where it's like, okay, I'm going to be 4 short. Okay, I need to do more of the defense route. Well, that's kind of, you know, not as much of an issue in the board game because you're dealing with very simple math. And so it is interesting. Like, I could see myself pulling this out solo. Probably not a lot. And admittedly, playing the board game has gotten me playing the video game again because it awakens that in you, that desire.
And I'll say this, Ryan, as someone who is not as good as you at the video, like, I know in the video game you probably have like all the different moves that an enemy can do. You know, you start to memorize
certainly
them,
more than you do, which isn't setting the bar high.
Definitely more than I do. But I just loved the fact that like I could very easily look at an enemy and like see kind of what are the things they can do, and either so they're an enemy that maybe just progresses. It's like, okay, I can see what's coming. It was much easier in this for me to like prepare and
it's a really good point actually, because in the video game that's something you just have to like learn and memorize over time. Is like how some of these enemies behave, but in the board game it's spelled out on the card how they work.
I really appreciate
and like
that.
whether it's going to be random or they go through a sequence. So it does allow you to kind of like jump to that more advanced level of planning without having to just like learn everything.
Well, and since it's controlled by a die roll, like I had I think it was a relic where you can re-roll the die. That changes what, that's changed.
Yeah, Dango would always re-roll it off of my good relics.
I know.
But Dango, I love 5s. Why
no, Ryan, we're re-rolling. So, man, what a game.
Yep, I couldn't be more impressed by it. I mean, my desire to play it, and like the friend I played
Ryan's
it with, who I knew enjoyed Slay the Spire as well. I mean, we both had this feeling of like, man, we could like get together and play this. Like,
I was so
day.
sad I was getting sick while playing it because I was having so much fun when we were going. Oh yeah. Boy.
So and now they've announced Slay the Spire 2, the video game. I'm like, I can only hope that they continue supporting it in the board game as well. That would be awesome. If you're watching right now, Slay the Spire developers, we would love to see.
They watch.
And the board games, they're big roles in the family, people. We know it. The board game's been doing well. I mean, it's getting a lot of attention and like
that's good.
And it totally deserves it. I mean, it's really, I think, a best in class of this style of kind of bigger co-op game.
Absolutely. Oh, baby. What a delightful month of board gaming, and what some delightful board games those were. If you want to check out any of those games, we got links down below. They will bring you right to a page where you can spend your hard-earned cash, and it supports the channel, which is awesome. We also have other videos here, right here, I think, and you can click on one of those if you want to watch more. We will see you in the next one.